5 Live Formula One.
Hello and welcome to coverage from the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix in Imola. It is qualifying time and what is expected to be a really exciting qualifying. We don't always say that. Sometimes we go into qualifying thinking, yep, Max Verstappen's got it all wrapped up again. But this time, maybe not. Ben Edwards will be our lead commentator. This is exciting.
It certainly is. I'm getting quite excited about this already. Yeah, we've seen good performances from both Ferrari and McLaren through the course of the practice sessions so far. This is a weekend where it's a standard procedure, so we've had 3 practice sessions. There's no sprint race qualifying. We're going into the full proper qualifying, which will then line up the grid. But we've got McLaren, we've got Ferrari, but of course we've always got Red Bull. So it's really quite unpredictable at the moment as to who's going to end up on pole.
Alice Powell, W Series race winner and F1 analyst. Just describe to us the challenge that faces these drivers. 20 drivers, limited time to set their top speed lap.
Well, there's going to be different challenges that are going to face the drivers from what maybe they had in free practice, or at least some of them anyway. It's getting that lap in early. We saw 2 red flags in free practice 3. One of them from Fernando Alonso, who I hear, Jenny, is touch and go whether he's going to be out for this session. And then there was Sergio Perez right at the very end of the session. And that then didn't allow, for example, Max Verstappen to get a lap in on the soft tyre, and several other of the drivers as well. And we saw them all queuing going into the Ravazza, so the final 2 corners, and actually some of them weren't able to then get a lap due to traffic, Piastri being one of them, who of course was fastest in that free practice session. So getting that in early, but the gravel traps have been catching the drivers out, and certainly for Perez, he got stuck in the gravel and went into the wall at the Varanti outer chicane at turn 15. We've got new addition to gravel traps there, and also at turn 9 on the exit of turn 12, and turn 12 has become victim to Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen yesterday in the practice session. So this is a difficult track. It's very bumpy. It's an old surface, so it's not abrasive, so if you don't get that lap immediately, you will then have another shot at it. But there's so many different factors, as I've just touched on, that can certainly impact that.
Yeah, we've got about 2.5 minutes until the start of qualifying Q1. Obviously, we'll see all 20 drivers out. And Ben, it's going to be hard for the drivers to get that little bit of a window. And we've seen already that drivers have come into trouble with finding their space.
Absolutely right. And in the final practice session this morning, when Sergio Perez went off, it gave just a couple of minutes for everybody to go back out. But of course, you then had all 18 cars, because Alonso was out, all going out at the same time, and everyone looking for space. So Q1, the final part of Q1, could be very tight in that respect. I think some teams will have seen that and think we need to get our cars out, not at the very end. But the time differences are so tiny. We've got either sort of 16 to 18 cars covered by 1.2 seconds. And towards the end of the qualifying session, the grip's going to be better. See, it's a real mix. It's a compromise you have to make. You don't want to be going out too early. The tyres won't be good enough. But if you leave it to the last moment, it might not happen.
Tell you what, the conditions are absolutely perfect for going qualifying. It's about 24 degrees. The fans are all in the grandstands. They're lining the hills. The atmosphere is amazing. And they all, Alice, would love to see Ferrari on top, obviously.
Yeah, they would. There's a good possibility of that happening. Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc had looked pretty impressive all weekend. Certainly in the first 2 practice sessions, Charles Leclerc topped both of those. The fans basically packed with red, aren't they, to be honest, with all the Ferrari shirts, the Ferrari flags. There are a few other fans there. There's some Max Verstappen fans I've seen in the grandstand, and quite a few Papaya fans as well.
Yes, absolutely. I will be watching the pit lane eagerly for Fernando Alonso. I have just heard from the team, apparently the floor is now back on, so it does look good for him to get out in Q1, but I should keep my eyes open and looking out for any more information. And Ben, with just under 30 seconds, I'll cross over to you.
Thanks, Jenny. Let's see if Fernando does get out. I do hope he can. We've got everyone else now just firing up and getting ready. Most of them are in their garages, although I noticed Pierre Gasly's down at the end of the pit lane already to go out. And Pierre wearing the crash helmet in the colours of Ayrton Senna, who was killed in an accident here at Imola 30 years ago. He and Roland Ratzenberger. We're just getting a view in the garage, Alice, of Fernando Alonso's car. He's in the car, which is encouraging.
Yes, it is. That's always a good sign. They were told, right, get in the car. It might be touch and go to get out for the final sort of half of the session, but it looks like they will be able to do that. We have green light at the end of the pit lane. It's the Alpines that charge out on track first, followed by Zhou Guanyu in the Sauber. But positivity down at Aston Martin, even though there's still quite a few mechanics fumbling around to try and get bits and pieces back on the car.
So there was a lot of work to do, but hopefully they are going to get Fernando Alonso out. Sergio Perez, who had the incident earlier, that was a much more straightforward repair work for Red Bull. He's definitely going to be out on time, I think. It's the two Alpines that have gone out nice and early. Lewis Hamilton's about to be sent out. Everyone waiting for the signal to send him out of the pits. He's just got that signal, and he's on a brand new set of tyres, of soft tyres, and heading out down the pit lane right now. Lewis Hamilton is a former pole winner here back in 2021. He was out qualified in 2020 by teammate Valtteri Bottas, but he went on to take his one victory at Imola since Formula One came back here in 2020. He finished second in 21 to Max Verstappen after they had a big battle, but he also went off on a damp surface, and it didn't quite work out for him. He ended up finishing in second place on that occasion. He's just heading out onto the circuit now, but the track is in good shape. There's no doubt about it. Track temperatures are pretty reasonable, 43 degrees. These soft tyres have been working well, as we've seen through the free practice sessions so far. May get more than one flying lap on them, I'm not sure. Actually, Charles Leclerc's about to go out on a set of mediums, interestingly. So one or two people may well be going out on the medium compounds.
Yeah, feeling that he might need to just comfortable to get a banker lap on these medium set of tyres for now, Andrew.
What he's doing is he'll run, because there's not enough. What they want ideally is two sets of softs for each of the three sessions, but there aren't enough tyres for the teams to do that. So you either have a choice of running a set of mediums at some point during qualifying, and Leclerc's obviously chosen to do it for his first run, or you do one of your runs at one of your first runs in either the second or the third session on used softs. But they don't really like to do so they don't like to switch tyre compounds, the top drivers, within one of the short sessions. So quite often they'll use the mediums now, and then they've got softs for the rest of the session. Or in the case of Verstappen, what he often does is just do one run in one of the sessions, because if your car's that quick like the Red Bull, you don't need to go out twice.
Andrew Benson, BBC F1 correspondent, thank you very much for that. Let's go back to Jenny.
Yes, just an Aston Martin update. I've spoken to the team. They do have the latest spec spare parts ready and put onto Fernando Alonso's car. So that is the latest spec floor as well, which is quite an achievement for them. And good news for Alonso. And just one other point, listening across to the radios, and Charles Leclerc was asking Ferrari, does Carlos, i.e. Carlos Sainz, have priority this weekend? And he does have priority, so Leclerc will have to concede any kind of advantage to his teammate. That's how they run, the kind of 1-2, and they alternate each weekend, and it just happens that it's Sainz's weekend this weekend.
Yes, the drivers alternate the choice of who gets to do what they want to do, whether it's go first or go second out of the two cars. Just on Alonso, by the way, we were watching, anyone who was listening to the final practice commentary, we weren't quite sure what happened in that accident, Ben, were we? Because it was very odd. He lost the car very early in the corner of Aston Martin. It does appear that he made a mistake, just pushing too hard on those hard tyres that he was on at the time.
Yeah, he was on hard tyres, whereas most were on mediums or softs, and clearly it was easier to spin the rear tyres when they were the hard tyres, and that has happened. So Russell was on a lap on medium tyres, but he's decided to come straight back in. We've got Carlos Sainz now on a set of medium compound tyres. Looks as though he may do a full lap, but maybe he'll come back in at the end of the lap too.
Potentially. I mean, we have got Lewis Hamilton, who stayed out in the other Mercedes Mercedes. He's popped up with a 1:16.7 on the soft tyre. That only puts him second at the moment compared to Esteban Ocon, who's just about under half a tenth off him in first place. So Esteban getting the Alpine working.
That's a bit of a surprise, isn't it? And I don't think that's going to last for very long. The fact that Esteban Ocon, who has scored 1 point for that whole Alpine team so far this year, they've really struggled. The best qualifying they've had is a 12th place. He's had a 13th. It was Gasly who's out-qualified him once and had that slightly better place. But yeah, right now, Ocon is fastest. Good start. We're listening on board Carlos Sainz at the moment as he is putting together a lap on medium compound tyres, as is Charles Leclerc. And we'll get a pretty close comparison between the two of them. Going through the sectors, they're not as quick as Ocon on the soft tyres. But at this stage, we'll see whether he actually decides to stay out there on those tyres or whether he comes straight back in. Plenty of people not putting a lap time in as yet. It's Ocon fastest, Hamilton second, Lance Stroll currently third, Kevin Magnussen fourth. But that's all going to change pretty quickly. Sainz is going to come across the line. Let's just see what he does. He goes fourth fastest on a 1:16.9 on the medium compound tyre, which is about 3/10 away from the best. And his teammate now, Charles Leclerc, he comes across the line and goes a fraction faster. He does a 1:16.4.
But keep an eye on for Alex Albon. He's out there on the soft tyre and had a fairly decent, was in the top 10 in free practice 3. And just as I said that, commentator's curse runs across the gravel, which we've seen numerous people do on the exit of Ravazza 2, the final corner, turn 18. And unfortunately, that only puts him ninth, so he's going to have to go again. But Lando Norris is circulating on the soft tyre, fastest of anybody in the middle sector, comes down the hill into turn 17, nicely on the curve there, and then into the turn 18, and also gets a snap of oversteer, manages to avoid the gravel. But entry to turn 18 is where Fernando Alonso lost the rear, and Lando Norris, he goes up to P1, just over 2.5 tenths clear of Leclerc.
Yeah, that's a good start for Lando Norris, although it's not a massive gain in terms of the tyre difference. Alexander Albon had this moment on the exit of the last corner into the gravel. Thankfully, didn't lose control. That was where Alonso had his crash earlier. Jenny, what's the latest news on him?
Yeah, good news, and well done to the team at Aston Martin. They managed to get Alonso back out, so he's now circulating and trying to put a time together out there. So well done to the Aston Martin team. They had an awful lot of work to do, and they've managed to get him out.
Alice, what is it about Ravazza, the exit of Ravazza 2, that everyone seems to have that little oversteer moment there if they're not careful?
It's trying to get on the throttle. It's the eagerness to try and get on the throttle. You know, you've got that long straight. It's the DRS zone as well for these drivers. And it's the final part of the lap where you're just trying to eke every little bit of time. Of course, you're doing that around the entire circuit, but it's right at the very end there. And actually, the nature of turn 17, it falls away. So often you'll see drivers miss the curb at 17 if they've just turned in a little bit too late. And if you do, it's really hard to try and get the car back into any state of handling of what you want. Understeer is naturally on the sort of mid to exit of 17. And then 18, of course, you find that you're chasing the throttle, get the oversteer. Max Verstappen navigates that quite nicely, Ben.
Yeah, Max is doing a good job, in fact, and I think he's going to beat the time. Yes, he is. So all that story of Verstappen struggling a bit this weekend, he's just set the fastest time, not by a big chunk, but the chunks are not going to be big anyway at this lap. You see very, very close lap times. He has gone fastest, Max Verstappen, looking for another consecutive pole position, all the pole positions this year so far, but the battle's still on. Piastri's actually gone quicker in the first sector. We are now keeping an eye on Oscar Piastri, the Australian who's done such a good job with McLaren, and he's on his first time with them at this track. He's not raced at Imola before. It's middle sector, not the fastest of all, but he's still in the game.
He's still in the game, as you said. He's heading down into 17, and also actually one thing to add about turn 18, it's quite narrow on the exit there, so you go in and it almost looks like it opens up, and then bang, you're at the exit curb, you're at the gravel, so it draws you in there to a sort of false sense of security. But wow, pops up, first man to enter into the 115s, 115.940, so just under a tenth quicker than Max Verstappen, and actually his fastest time in free practice 3 was a 115.5, so potentially still a bit of time there as we're getting a replay of Max Verstappen flying over the curb at the chicane and kicking up, I think, parts of the curb along with him.
Yeah, that's right. But he got away with it, unlike Perez earlier, who hit that curve and went off. So Max managed to sort that out. But the Red Bull doesn't look quite as absorbing of some of that curbing that some of the other drivers or some of the other cars do. Lance Stroll has just moved up to 5th. So that's a reasonable performance from Lance Stroll. It's currently Oscar Piastri fastest, Max Verstappen 2nd, Norris is 3rd, Perez 4th, Stroll into 5th. But of course we're in first qualifying session here, and it's actually those down below 15th. But we've got quite a few people who haven't actually set a time yet. We are keeping an eye on Pierre Gasly at this point. He's down in 14th position. I think both of the Alpines could be struggling to get into the next part of qualifying. We're watching a bit of an onboard view. We've got a yellow flag out as well, so somebody it's okay, it's cleared very quickly, so that has been solved. Gasly trying to put a lap. He's improving his own times, but he's still got to be some way off the top level.
Yeah, Russell, he's popped up from sort of nowhere. He's gone into P3. Gasly, actually, for a split second, had the fastest middle sector. So the track is evolving. We've had a Formula 2 race out, and that was absolute carnage. Lots of debris on track, lots of gravel and grass. So the track will naturally get better. They did have the sweepers out, but of course, the track's going to evolve. Carlos Sainz now up into P3 on the medium set of tyres, and Pierre Gasly in the Alpine has just jumped up into P4 on the soft tyre, less than a 10th away from Oscar Piastri. So it certainly is evolving, and Lewis Hamilton's about to cross the line too then.
Yeah, let's see where Hamilton goes. Russell is currently 6th, Hamilton down in 12th. So that's a bit risky because he's definitely going to have to go again before this session is over. Jenny?
Yeah, looking at the Ferrari drivers, both Sainz and Leclerc, the only drivers to go out there still on the mediums. There's about a 4/10th difference between the medium tyre and the soft tyre, they reckon. So they're saving their soft tyres for later on, obviously. But it's interesting that they've still managed to post those decent times on the medium.
Logan Sargent's just been off through the gravel and back on again. Thankfully, it's okay, but that's ended what should have been a representative lap. He is last in the list at the moment. Hasn't set a time as a result of that. Norris has now set the pace. A 1:15.915 ahead of Piastri by 25 thousandths of a second. Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso is back on track with the repaired car, but my goodness, he ran wide there. And he's got off in the gravel again. He can hopefully keep it going and not hit the barrier this time like he did earlier today.
I looked, and as he went through turn 2, I thought, oh, that's a lot of speed going into there. Then he was too far to the right-hand side for turn 3, which is a right-hander. Was too greedy on the way into 2. That put him out of position for 3 in the gravel on the exit of 3, which then speared him across the track. So, yeah, it's not going well today, is it, so far for Alonso?
He's not having his best day, is he, Fernando Alonso?
Ironically, though, the first few sectors there, of that first sector, he was faster than anybody. But
I'm surprised he carried so much speed in.
This probably helped, actually. Look, he got a bit of a toe, didn't he? He was going higher speed here, perhaps, than he expected, and maybe that's what caught him out. I don't know. Yeah,
he carried way too much speed in there, but he didn't get a run, did he, Andrew, on the soft tyre earlier on?
He didn't, and was that a bit of bodywork that I saw flicking up then when he went over the curb? It's hard to tell. That's a bit too late, the shot we're seeing now. It was when he ran wide first of all, and he was only over half the curb, which then threw him onto the other side of the track and into the gravel. It was where I thought maybe it looked like he'd lost some bodywork, but I guess we'll find out later.
Yeah, we will. Well, at the moment, in that drop zone, we do have Alonso, Hülkenberg, Zhou Guanyu, Alex Albon and Logan Sargent. 5 minutes to go in Q1, and they are the ones that will all be battling. Now, we see that Stroll is 10th fastest, so Alonso's teammate for Aston Martin, he is 10th fastest. Alonso at the moment in 16th place. Other variations going on is that Kevin Magnussen at this point is just in the top 15, only just. He is the one most at risk. His teammate Nico Hülkenberg, 0.138 of a second slower, is in the drop zone currently. So let's keep an eye on Alex Albon here. We have seen some good performances from him, but it's been a bit of a tough time for Williams this year so far. They're beginning to lose a bit of weight off the car, they've been telling us. It's been running a bit overweight. You can see some gravel still on the track, which doesn't help either, does it?
No, but it was sort of coming onto the straight, so he will have cleaned quite quickly off his tyres, but 2.5 tenths down, and not a personal best for Alex Albon, Jenny.
Yeah, I'm just listening across to Lando Norris's radio, and you can't really tell how much is sarcasm, but he just got in touch with his engineer and saying, how was your lap? How did it feel? Feedback, please. And Lando Norris, having set the fastest time, said, pretty average.
Well, he's done a good job. He's fastest. We've got a McLaren 1-2 at the moment from Verstappen in third. Then the first of Ferraris is Carlos Sainz. We're still riding with Alex Albon, who's done a good middle sector, hasn't he, Alice?
Yeah, only slightly quicker than Magnussen, so our graphics changed to reference for Magnussen now, who is at risk of being eliminated in this first qualifying session, and it just doesn't look comfortable. The Williams struggling to get the front end in, and then when it does, the rear wants to have a bit of a snap, so not looking great. And actually, he's only popped up into P12 or 116.5, and I think he's going to be at risk here, so I'm expecting he'll have a cool-down lap, and he'll have no choice but to go again.
Lando Norris on track a moment ago. We're just getting a view. It was just bouncing over the curve. It's just a nice shot. We do get these lovely images of the cars. They do bounce over the curve. Sometimes all four tyres are off the ground. But the McLaren actually, I think, deals with that curving very well. They've set up the suspension pretty cleverly. It's not looking quite as anxious as some of the other cars, even the Red Bull, which looks a bit more nervous over those curves.
Yeah, the Ferrari and the McLaren's been the best so far, riding those quite aggressive curves at the chicane. As Fernando Alonso now, he's back out to round two, take again as he heads through the first part of the first chicane, now flies through into the Villeneuve chicane, the next chicane on track, as he's going to bleed out now to start heading into sector 2, and it's not looking great. He's only, well, half a tenth off Daniel Ricciardo, who is the last car in 15th but out the elimination zone. He's
backed off, I think, because that hasn't come together, but he's running out of time because at the moment Alonso down in 17th position. So this is proving to be pretty difficult. We're going to see how the Saubers are getting on as well. Currently, Zhou Guanyu down in 19th. His teammate Valtteri Bottas in 14th. Qualifying's been tough for this team. Bottas has often qualified very well here at Imola, whether it was for Mercedes or for this team in the past. But they're both at risk. And Zhou Guanyu is last of those that have set a time, because Logan Sargent, who is on track now, is about to set his first time of this session.
Yeah, Logan obviously just clearly wanting to go for just one run here, but he's got to get it right, and it's quite hard to get this track right. There's no room for errors here, as Alonso and Perez have demonstrated over the weekend. Zhou is up though, a tenth and a half, just over a tenth and a half faster than Daniel Ricciardo once he exits sector 2, but the rest of those behind him are still yet to go and start their final lap.
We've got less than a minute to go, yeah, as you say, and there's a lot of cars out there. Ferrari are still hopeful, Jenny.
Yeah, I've just been listening to Leclerc's radio. He said there's no point going out on the softs. I think we'll stay where we are. So they've done the whole session, Sainz and Leclerc, on the mediums.
Interesting that. Give them extra softs for later on. Hulkenberg trying to improve right now as well. Bottas in 15th place, Ricciardo in 16th. Bottas moves up one place to 14th. And right now in that drop zone, we've got Daniel Ricciardo, Zhou Guanyu, Kevin Magnussen, Fernando. Oh, Hulkenberg's just gone fastest. My goodness, in the Haas. How's he done that?
That's come from nowhere. He's fastest in that middle sector, and it was a pretty handy middle sector from Nico Hulkenberg. And claps around in the Haas garage. That will see him safely through. But Fernando Alonso, he's gone into the pits. So that's day over for Fernando.
Oh, what a shame to hear that about Alonso. Yeah, you're right, in the pits, so he's not going to get any more time. My goodness, Verstappen's on a lap where he's had the fastest first sector, but he has not matched Hulkenberg in that middle sector. Meanwhile, Daniel Ricciardo's improving on his time so far, but Ricciardo in the drop zone currently. So let's see, we're going to see a few last moment changes. Verstappen's safe already, and he goes fastest. He beats Hulkenberg as he comes over the line. So that's the new fastest time, a 1:15.7. Ricciardo's safe. He's got himself up into 7th place at the last moment. What about his teammate Tsunoda? He should be okay already. He's already in 10th place. He's on a potentially better lap here now as he comes over the line. Yep, Tsunoda goes 3rd. That's very impressive. It does look as though the track's getting faster and faster, as we thought at the end of the session. And Charles Leclerc now about to come over the line. Remember, he's still using the medium compound, but he's gone 2nd. My goodness, that shows the Ferrari pace is really strong.
Yeah, the Ferrari has got a lot of pace. he'll feel pretty happy, pretty confident with the pace. Fernando Alonso back in the pits. He'll be getting out of his car very shortly, but that is it then. Bottas, Sargent, Joe, Magnussen and Alonso are your drivers eliminated.
And Hamilton only just made it by, what, 200ths of a second, basically. So Hamilton 15th, very nearly kicked out, but he's in there. And the ones we've lost, as you mentioned, are Valtteri Bottas for Sauber, Logan Sargent for Williams, the other Williams of Alex Albon, again, has out-qualified him, as he's done every time so far. Then we've got Zhou Guanyu, he's out, eliminated. Kevin Magnussen out, and Fernando Alonso. I mean, that's the shocker in a way, because Fernando has the pace to do this, but the car's been repaired. Whether it's all absolutely as he would want it to feel, of course, you never quite know, because you're first out when the car's been repaired. Sometimes the car can feel quite different to how it felt when you were in it earlier, but we'll have to see. I think Magnussen, obviously, it's going to hurt him, the fact that Nico Hülkenberg was third fastest.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Saturday, Nico Hülkenberg, loves a good qualifying session. We could be about to find out why. And is that a McLaren, possibly?
I can't believe this, man. It's unreal. Unreal.
Well, that certainly cost him. And that was Oscar, wasn't it? Oscar Piastri ahead of Kevin Magnussen. I don't think he realised till quite late, and then he tried to get through the chicane quickly, but that definitely did affect Magnussen. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, he definitely held up Magnussen there, and that's not good for Oscar, because that could potentially be some sort of penalty. We've seen them in the past for getting in the way of a driver that's on a much faster lap. Piastri was on a cool lap. He finished the session in 6th place, but that meant that Magnussen was not able to get a lap and was down in 19th. So yeah, like you said, Ben, huge disappointment for Magnussen.
So Lewis Hamilton just making it through ahead of his former teammate Valtteri Bottas, who beat him in qualifying here when they drove for Mercedes a few years ago. But Hamilton just had a fraction more in sectors 1 and sector 3, just enough to go through, but it was by a tiny amount, 0.022 of a second. Hamilton down in 15th, whereas his teammate George Russell was 10th, still not particularly far up the list. Daniel Ricciardo making it safely in, and both RBs are looking pretty good. It's mainly Italian-based team, RB. They have bases in the UK as well, of course, but this is a special event for them because they are local to where the team was originally created, and it's very special for Ferrari. They use those medium compound tyres very effectively, and that could give them a little bit of an edge towards the end of Q3 if they've got a bit more tyre to use. Jenny?
Yeah, thinking about the local area, Yuki Tsunoda, of course, moved around here, didn't he, when Franz Tost was in charge, and saying that actually he needed to be under his control a little bit more. It was when his emotions were getting a bit on top of him and he wasn't handling the pressure very well of being an F1 star. So Yuki Tsunoda moved nearby to Faenza, and to finish P4 in the first part of qualifying and do so well yesterday as well, with a P3 finish for the end of yesterday's practice sessions. Yes, I think the track flattered him at times, but you have to take your hat off. I mean, his teammate Daniel Ricciardo finishing 9th, so Yuki is obviously in some fine form at the moment. I
agree. No, I think the Japanese driver, who, as you say, lives nearby, is doing well. There's a lovely view of that house, top of the house. We're just looking at some views from a nearby house where they've got Ferrari fans standing at the top of the roof, basically, and getting a wonderful view of the track. Yeah,
and the dog was sat there on the balcony as well. Don't forget the dog getting a great view of the action. We've got some Max Verstappen fans, some Aston Martin fans in the crowd, so it's nice to see, even the majority of them are Ferrari fans, it is nice to see a variety of fans, and they'll be hoping that Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz will be taking up the front row of the grid tomorrow, but it's looking very good for them at the moment. They are the only 2 drivers that were out there on the medium tyre and set their time on the medium tyre.
It was a very unusual top 4. Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Nico Hülkenberg, Yuki Tsunoda. So that's the top 4. I'm sure it'll all change, but we've got a good competition going on here. Jenny?
Yes, the stewards are busy as well. They have noted that incident between Piastri and Magnussen, and they will investigate that after qualifying, which is something that they have taken to doing. So They have also noted that the following cars have not followed the race director's instructions, which is a maximum delta time. You can talk about that in a minute, but they are Zhou, Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, Gasly, Leclerc, Sargent and Ricciardo. They have all been noted and will be investigated after the session. This is a kind of regular thing that happens, isn't it?
And nothing gets done.
Yeah, it's quite boring. I don't know why they bother noting it, because they always find a reason why the cars were slower than the time that they were supposed to do on their out or in laps, and it all gets brushed under the carpet. The Piastri-Magnussen incident, though, Ben and Alice, I think is a much more serious potential issue there.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if Oscar's going to get a penalty for that. But actually, one thing that I've just noted by looking at the timing screen here is both Alpines managed to scrape through into the next part of qualifying. Gasly was P8 and Esteban Ocon was 11th.
That surprised me too, actually, because they struggled a little bit during the course of the weekend, although Ocon did put in a good lap in the final free practice session, and they are definitely looking stronger than expected. Right, Q2 is now underway here at Imola, and we're watching the Mercedes coming out onto the track, both George Russell and Lewis Hamilton taking to the circuit now on what looked like used soft tyres initially. Listen to Lewis.
Where is everyone? They're still setting the garages with the engine running.
So not everybody's going out straight away.
He's feeling a bit lonely out on track. They're coming, Lewis, don't worry.
Yeah, he's still got his teammate up ahead of him somewhere, and we shall see how it goes between these two. George Russell competed here 3 times at Imola, and he's never been out-qualified by his teammate. He out-qualified Lewis last year. That was when they were, well, not last year, 2022. We didn't get a race here last year, sadly, because of the floods, the dreadful rain that came down at Imola. It was booked in, but sadly the race got cancelled, and it was a tough time for local people. And in fact, Yuki Tsunoda, who lives nearby, he went out and helped some of the floods to try and sort out what was going on. So it's so good that F1 is back here this year after such a difficult time last year when it had to be cancelled.
Yeah, no, it's very good. Good to see. And on a serious note as well, Lewis Hamilton is probably saying, where is everyone? Because he doesn't want to be out of sync with all the other drivers. So he doesn't want them sort of coming out of the pit lane when he's on a push lap. One thing I have just noticed is Sargent has lost his lap for track limits. So Alonso, he's gained a place. Much it's a small consolation, but he won't be starting at dead last for tomorrow's race.
Yeah, so the order for the grid tomorrow will actually change a little bit, and it's made my notepad not look as neat as it normally does. It will be Bottas, Zhou, Magnussen and Alonso, and Sargent moves to the rear of that, and he lost his time, so he will start P20.
Okay, well, yeah, it's not proving to be an easy time for Logan Sargent at this stage. We're now listening, and we're keeping an eye on George Russell. George setting, obviously, the initial times of this Q2, because he's the first one out on a flying lap, and it gives us a chance to have a look around the circuit from a rather lovely view. You've got this up and down section, 30-metre height difference here at the Imola circuit, and then tight and twisty areas where you've got to use the curbs, but not too hard, otherwise the car will be launched up in the air, and we've seen that several times. Russell putting together a good lap so far. Lewis Hamilton behind, I don't think quite as quick. There's not a huge difference between them, but we shall see the difference, and there are some slower cars picking up some pace before they start their fast laps. I hope they don't get held up.
Yeah, so they'll be looking to make sure the traffic stays well out the way, and it certainly does. So Russell's going to charge across the line. He will, of course, shoot to the top of the times, which he does, and he'll hold top spot for the minute. We wait for Lewis Hamilton, who's gone fastest of anyone in the middle sector, which means faster than George Russell, and yes, he does by 0.003 of a second, splitting the two Mercedes.
We were talking earlier about how close the lap time qualifying times between the two have been this year, and it's as close as ever. As you say, 0.003 of a second currently between Hamilton and Russell. But now we are watching Max Verstappen, who's looking for that 7th consecutive pole position this year. Can he do it? Well, he's fastest in both of the initial sectors, so it's coming together extremely well.
It is. He's faster than a good chunk than the Mercedes, but of course we're going to wait for the Ferraris to come out of the pits and set a lap time. But Verstappen should quite easily, if he keeps it together in these final 2 corners, and we've had plenty of demonstrations on how not to do the final 2 corners, and actually gets a bit of understeer on the exit of turn 18 there, and then it snaps quite quickly into oversteer. But it's not a problem for Max Verstappen. He jumps the fastest overall, 1:15.386, 8/10 of a second quicker than Lewis Hamilton.
That's the fastest we've seen so far. Perez goes second fastest on a 1:15.8. Piastri did a 1:15.5 in final practice. Hulkenberg 16.1. So it's another good lap from Nico Hulkenberg, who's really getting it together here in the Haas around this Imola circuit, which is impressive, as he hasn't actually competed in Formula One here in the past. Russell's just come back into the pits. We've got quite a few cars on their outlaps right now, including the key ones, really, the 2 Ferraris and the 2 McLarens, because we think they've got a chance of contesting Red Bull. But now Verstappen, of course, has gone fastest, and it's going to become a tougher order in which to try and beat. Hamilton now being pushed down to 4th place, Russell in 5th, Alex Albon currently 6th, but a bunch of cars still to set a lap time.
I think not only are we going to have a good scrap for pole position, but I think we're also going to have a real good fight for those wanting to get into the top 10. We've obviously got the Alpines that are in there, Alex Albon as well, as Carlos Sainz tear off. He means business as he heads down the main bumpy straight, real bumpy part of the track here at Imola, and goes nicely into turn 1 through turn 2, all looking pretty neat and tidy, Ben.
So far for Carlos it is. They're on the soft tyres on the Ferraris now, Jenny, as opposed to running those mediums earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking at who's using new and old tyres, so Verstappen set his lap on a brand new set of soft tyres, as did Nico Hulkenberg, whereas Perez is using the old tyres. They haven't done many laps, but they are older, as was Hamilton, Russell and Albon.
Okay, so that's interesting. We're going to have to see how that goes. Meanwhile, Oscar Piastri's on a pretty good lap at the moment as well. So we're going to see a few changes in the order, but Verstappen is the one to beat. He's done that impressive 1:15.3. Gasly's just popped up into 6th position now. Carlos Sainz is into the latter stages of the lap at the moment, but Piastri has set the fastest middle sector briefly, but now Charles Leclerc's gone quicker. Very close. McLaren and Ferrari, they're all going to be very tight, aren't they?
Yeah, we've got a great battle here, certainly, and I expect Leclerc will jump to the top of the times. No, he doesn't. And he lost, that was Carlos Sainz. He doesn't jump to the top of the times. 0.3 of a second clear, or behind, should I say, of Max Verstappen, as we're now going to wait for Charles Leclerc to come across the line, and he does. Just over half a tenth clear of Max Verstappen. I got my right drivers in the end.
Charles Leclerc fastest, Verstappen second, Piastri right up there as well with a good lap. He's 3rd, Sainz now 4th. Ricciardo's just popped up into 6th place. Lando Norris is on a lap. He goes 4th fastest behind his teammate again. So interestingly, Lando not quite got the pace that his teammate Piastri has. It's incredibly close though. You've got 4 drivers separated by 0.15. No, Tsunoda's gone 2nd. Yuki Tsunoda's gone 2nd fastest to Charles Leclerc by 0.030 of a second. My goodness, that's astonishing. We've seen the RB performing well all weekend, but Jenny, that is remarkable.
We spoke about this in practice earlier, and I said, it was amazing, Yuki Tsunoda, and Andrew, you did say it might have been a bit of a show run, a glory run yesterday to get him on top in his home race. What is the home race for the team? Are you still standing by that?
I tell you what, it might be asleep in his own bed. That could do wonders, you know.
Oh, it might be.
Maybe, yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't know what's going on there. What I will say is that there are, sometimes in Formula One, you get these weird things, like 1 minute Ricciardo's qualifying 4th, for example, for a sprint race. The next day he's qualifying 15th or 12th for a Grand Prix. And a lot of the time it's to do with the tyres. Sometimes a driver just gets the tyres in the right window and they're not quite sure how it's happened, and they find some kind of magic lap and then they can't repeat it again. I don't know that that's what's going on here. It would be a surprise if the RB was suddenly mixing it with the McLarens and Ferraris and Red Bulls, and it certainly didn't show good race pace yesterday in second practice. So I can't really say any more than that.
Well, it's hard to overtake round this circuit, so he could park the bus, couldn't he?
It's really interesting. We've gone through that sort of first run of Q2. We've got a little bit of a pause where cars are back in the pits. We've got 6 minutes to go, just over 6 minutes. But very interesting that, for example, it's the top 10 that will go through to the next stage. Lewis Hamilton is currently 10th, and his teammate, George Russell, who, as you mentioned, only 0.003 of a second slower, He's currently in the drop zone in 11th place. So the Mercedes are not giving the sort of pace that we thought from yesterday. Again, we thought they were improving. They're not as far up as we expected.
Just on that, they did run used tyres for that session, and they did it quite early on.
Yep.
So I don't think that's comparable. And for a moment when they were 1 and 2 on that board, right at the beginning of the session, you were like, oh, it's back to the old days with Mercedes being able to compete with, you know, the Red Bulls and Ferraris of the world. Maybe they have something more up their sleeve and that they can find that sweet spot that Andrew was talking about. But this is the reality of where Mercedes are right now, I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge for them. Let's see what happens. As you say, with their new tyre, they will definitely move up a little bit more. Gasly and Ocon very close to one another, but they're down in 12th and 13th place for Alpine. They've got both cars into Q2, which is good news for them. Lance Stroll currently in 14th place, and Alex Albon actually on an out lap already. He is currently the slowest of the 15 at this stage in the Williams. He's 0.724 seconds off the pace that he needs to get into the top 10. But this is all going to change. We're going to see faster lap times coming up in the second part of Q2. We're into that sector now effectively with 4.5 minutes to go, and Albon already improving, showing us again that the track is picking up, it's getting more grippy, and you are able to set faster times.
Yeah, the wind has died down ever so slightly, so it was at 2.9, it's now at 1.8 meters per second, so it has died down ever so slightly, which will make a difference. Albon is out there on a brand new set of softs, but of course, as Jenny's already mentioned, Hamilton, Russell, Gasly and Ocon you can chuck in there as well, and Stroll were all on used set, but it's very close. He's lost some time, Ben, to Lewis Hamilton in that middle sector.
Yeah, and we think 1:15.8 is going to be the key point, and Perez is only on that at the moment. Jenny?
Yeah, I just listened to Yuki Tsunoda's radio, and he said, I think my lap was pretty good. Yeah, it was actually. It was second on that order. Amazing. Fantastic.
But not so fantastic for Albon. He's done a better lap for himself, but he's still in the drop zone. He's gone 12th fastest. He's done a 1:16.2, which actually matches the lap time that George Russell did pretty much. But it isn't working for him. So unfortunately, that means that at this stage, unless he can do a slow lap and go again, which may not be impossible here, he's out already. Maybe the soft tyres you can get a second flying lap, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's not really an abrasive circuit, so we have seen over the course of the weekend the drivers just do a push lap and then a cool lap just to let the temperature in the tyres drop, and then they go again, and they have made improvements. So Alex Albon, whether he will be doing that, we will have to wait and see, but if he does, he'll be hoping that there's still some life in those set of soft tyres for him to move further up the order. But now we have majority of the grid starting to come out. All it leaves is Leclerc, Tsunoda, Verstappen and Perez, who are currently in the pits, but I expect them to be making their way out very soon.
And some will be using used soft tyres for this, if they've already used the new ones. We know Mercedes, for example, are definitely on their new ones, having used the used soft tyres earlier on. And that's what we're going to keep a little bit of an eye on here, because George Russell is currently in the drop zone. He's down in 11th place, but now he's on a fresh set of tyres. This may be a big jump for George, but he's got to get it all together. Down the main straight and into the first chicane. Let's see how it looks.
Yeah, quite tidy through the first chicane, and now he's going full throttle all the way down to the Villeneuve chicane. You've got to be gentle with these curves, not your traditional curves that you see at majority of the circuits. They're more sort of rises and moulds compared to your rumbles, but he is just under 0.2 of a second quicker than Lewis Hamilton's first sector, and Lewis Hamilton of course is occupying that final qualifying spot into Q3. However, Lewis has done a pretty decent first sector, only 0.5 of Charles Leclerc's best.
Okay, this is where we are going to see quite a lot of improvements. By the way, I think Tsunoda is not coming out. Everyone else pretty much is out, but Tsunoda's staying in the pits. They know he's done a good lap. It's very unlikely, even though we're going to see a lot of improvements, it's unlikely he will be dropped out of the top 10. We'll keep an eye on it and just see what happens. He's going to be watching. He'll be a bit nervous, seeing if everybody's improving. Hulkenberg currently doing a good job at this stage. He's in the top 10 already. Let's see whether he can move up the order. Now, George Russell, vital for him to jump up. Yes, he does, to 6th. 1:15.6. It's still not the sort of pace they would love to have. It should be just about safe. 1:15.6 for Hamilton too. We're thinking 1:15.8 is going to be the crucial amount, but let's wait and see, because Hulkenberg now actually goes ahead of both Mercedes with the Haas. Brilliant effort once again from Nico Hulkenberg. Just the one Aston Martin. That is Lance Stroll on a lap right now. If he can keep it tidy through the last couple of corners. Oh, just stays off the gravel. That was actually quite well judged by Lance Stroll. He's in the drop zone, but he stays there. He only moves up to 13th.
Yeah, but it's Sergio Perez. He's really at risk at the moment. I'm just having a look. Daniel Ricciardo, I expect to just pop up into these top spots. He comes across the line now. Yes, so he's into 9th, and Perez at the moment is not looking like he's going through into the final part of qualifying session. He's yet to start his flying lap.
Yeah, he's on it now.
3 seconds left.
Decent first sector though. He's done a 0.014 off his previous best, so that should be that he's on a reasonable lap. Sainz pops up to 6th place. Daniel Ricciardo is the driver at risk, of course, if Perez does go quicker. Lance Stroll hasn't made it. There is Perez. Right, this is a crucial lap for Sergio Perez, the Mexican. Can he get it back into the top 10? Heading up the hill into this chicane where we've seen his accident earlier. Oh, that was all right. Yeah, he sorted that out. That was where he hit the barrier earlier, and they've had to change the front wing ever since then. So far, it's promising for Sergio Perez. Verstappen's just gone fastest outright. He's gone 0.15 of a second faster than Charles Leclerc. Tsunoda is still in that 3rd place. Let's see where Sergio Perez comes. He moves up. No, he doesn't. My goodness, he fails in the end. And that is it. He's out of Q3. 0.5 of a second off in the end, so he is out, and that is a bit of a shocker for Sergio Perez and for Red Bull, when we've got Tsunoda, for example, with their sister team RB up in 3rd place. The others out: Esteban Ocon, Lance Stroll, Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly.
I was just diving and having a look at these sectors, and he didn't set a personal best in the 1st sector. We're having a look at a replay now, and yeah, the Red Bull, certainly Perez's Red Bull, looks quite uncomfortable going over the curb there, and actually I think he took too much curb bend into the Variante Alta turn 14, first part of the chicane, of course, where he went off earlier on in free practice 3, so it wasn't a personal best in the 1st sector, and then he basically did near enough the most identical time to Ricciardo in the middle sector, and then although he set a personal best, let's hear from him.
What a mess.
Yeah, well, it certainly didn't work very well for them. Jenny?
Yes, just looking at who was on what tyres. They were all on softs, obviously. But Max Verstappen set his fastest time at 1:15.176 on used soft tyres. The others on used soft tyres were Norris and Piastri. So you might have the order from Q2, but I think that's going to change possibly quite a lot when it comes to the last part of qualifying. We might still see the same man at the top, but underneath that, I think it's going to be a really tight fight.
It is, and it's an interesting mix that we've got in the top 10, actually. It's surprising me a little bit, of course, that we haven't got Perez in the top 10 in the second of the Red Bulls. And, well, we've seen him in the past, sometimes not qualifying brilliantly, but normally here at Imola, Sergio Perez has gone pretty well. He's had a front row in the past. He's had a podium finish, but it hasn't worked out for him. He's lost out by 15 thousandths of a second.
I think this is really exciting as well going forward. Sorry, Alice, but if you look at the drivers who have gone out now, this is a real opportunity, because we know this track is really hard to overtake in. So for tomorrow's race, if you're a Tsunoda, if you're Ricciardo, there's an opportunity, isn't there, for big points. Hulkenberg, the same. It's not all the same teams in the final part of qualifying.
Absolutely. Let's just quickly confirm who is made that top 10. So it is Verstappen, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Lando Norris and Piastri in the 2 McLarens. You got both Ferraris, obviously. Carlos Sainz is in there as well. Nico Hulkenberg, one of the surprise performances again. Both Mercedes of Russell and Hamilton, and then Daniel Ricciardo into Q3 this time. So those are the cars that have made it.
It is, and it was actually the final sector that Perez lost time to Daniel Ricciardo, lost over 1/10 of a second there. So that was enough to eliminate him from this qualifying session. Daniel Ricciardo, interestingly, has just hopped out of the car, so I'm guessing he needs some sort of comfort break. Let's hear from George Russell.
I don't know why he sent me on a youth set to start with. Just tires the pressure up unnecessarily for that last lap.
That's a very straightforward comment from George Russell. He said, why put us out on the used tyre for the first run? Because it then puts the pressure on. I do understand that to a certain extent. Whereas RB, for example, with Yuki Tsunoda, they had one set of softs. They put him out nice and early, and he delivered. The thing is, though, we do see the track developing a little bit. So I do understand why teams do make that decision, because sometimes the track is a little quicker by the end of the session. So you put your new tyres on at the end, you do actually sometimes gain a few thousandths of a second. Yeah,
there'll be plenty of reasoning, of course, behind Mercedes' decision, whether they want to save an extra set, possibly a new set for this next part of qualifying, or whether they've got plans to maybe use it at some point during the race tomorrow, because we haven't really seen a great chunk of degradation from the soft tyre. I think it might have been you, Andrew, was touching on that. Actually, they were saying that the soft tyre can end up doing more laps at a quicker pace than the medium or the hard tyre, which is something you don't often see.
Absolutely right. We shall see if that develops. And now we've got the question, with Verstappen having set the pace in that final sector, is he still going to hold on to take that pole position? Tsunoda's getting a lot of support, though, which is lovely to see, and quite rightly too. The Japanese driver, the 24-year-old, going into his 70th Grand Prix this weekend, and his best ever grid position, by the way, is 6th. So if he was able to repeat what he did, and I think that's going to be a bit harder in the final part of qualifying, but if he was able to repeat a Q3, that would be his best ever qualifying. But you've got to go from 0 in the final part of qualifying. Everyone starts again, and we just have to see how it works out. Ferrari as a team have done well here at Imola in the past, but actually it's the McLaren team in history that has more pole positions than any other team. McLaren have had 9 pole positions at Imola over the years, and we know that Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri both have a chance. And Nico Hülkenberg, my goodness, that really was very, very impressive from Nico to get up into Q3. He's been in Q3 already this year. His best qualifying is 9th so far, and he's no experience of Imola in the past, and yet he's got it up in there in the top 10. So it'd be interesting to see how he gets on.
It certainly will, as the fans wait eagerly now for this next or final part of qualifying session to get underway. And it's all right doing it in practice. Charles Leclerc, of course, topping the first 2 practice sessions, and Oscar Piastri getting the top of the timesheets for the free practice 3. But this is when it counts, Ben. This is when you know that if you do make a mistake, you're going to end up paying for it potentially in a grid position. So they know that the pressure is on. Now is really when it counts as well for the engineers as well, and those strategists, making sure they do have the right tyre choice. George Russell wasn't particularly happy with his, but they'll hope that they will get it right for him in this final part of qualifying.
Jenny, what are your thoughts as we go into what should be a pretty exciting final part?
I know 12 minutes will go on the clock. The 10 drivers will go out there. And honestly, I don't know who is going to be the fastest. And it's a great position and a privilege to be able to watch a qualifying session where you don't actually know who is going to be the fastest man out there. It might be Verstappen. He's set the fastest time so far. But actually, the Ferraris are looking good. McLarens are looking good. They've tipped themselves for this weekend. This is their sort of track. So who can challenge the might of Max Verstappen?
And interestingly, Max Verstappen is going to be the first out. They have sent him down to the end of the pit lane already to wait for the session to get underway, and he wants to get that first lap in. In fact, oh no, there's one car ahead of him. Okay, but he's one of the first cars to go out onto the circuit. Ferrari are just about to send their cars out. It was Hülkenberg who went out first. So Hülkenberg first out, but Verstappen out very early. Ferrari are waiting just a little bit before sending both Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. And it's Sainz who gets first choice today. He goes out first. Charles Leclerc follows him, and they're both on shiny new soft tyres. We're into the final part of qualifying here at Imola, and we could be in for a very, very exciting time indeed. We're just going to have to wait and see how it all opens up over the next 11.5 minutes to see who takes pole position. By the way, it's 55 years today since Jackie Stewart took his first ever pole position. So Jackie Stewart took his first pole at Monaco in 1969. There's a couple of drivers here who could take their first ever pole. Oscar Piastri is one of those. Lando Norris has had a pole position in the past, and Charles Leclerc's had plenty. In fact, they're looking for the 250th ever pole position for Ferrari. I wonder if they can do that on Italian land. Lots to look forward to.
Yeah, it certainly is. You want to make sure you get a banker in. There's just over 10 minutes and 43 seconds of the session left, should I say. And the reason for getting that banker in, Ben, and we saw in free practice 3, didn't we? Max Verstappen missed out on setting a time on the soft tyre. Of course, the time does stop in qualifying if there is a red flag, but it doesn't stop for free practice. However, traffic can play a huge part. Even though we've only got 10 cars circulating in this session, it's still quite easy to find a spot of traffic or find a driver in your way when you're trying to queue at the end with the dying minutes, dying seconds of a session left. So Hülkenberg will start his first flying lap now, and he of course is fastest of anybody in the first sector, but it's not a great first sector for him. He's in the 24s, whereas all those at the front end of the field were in the 23s.
Yes, it's a note on who's on what tyres. So they're all on softs. Hülkenberg is on a used set of softs, as is Russell and Hamilton. Ricciardo hasn't got from the pits yet, so he's still in the pit lane.
Okay, Max Verstappen 23.4 in that first sector. Let's see how Lando Norris reacts. 23.6, so he's 2/10 down in the first sector. That's a good first sector by Max Verstappen. Into the middle sector, where yesterday the Red Bull was struggling. This section particularly was where Max was not enjoying the car. He couldn't get the turn in. It's looking much smoother now.
Yeah, now it's coming down to this chicane where the ride of the Red Bull has not looked fantastic from our camera point of view. Unfortunately, we were at the camera view on the curb, so we weren't able to see how that Red Bull glide over the curves, but he has lost the fastest middle sector, and that's gone to Lando Norris at the moment.
Yeah, so this is a battle still on. As we know, for the middle sector, the Red Bull is still struggling a little bit. Had to work the steering a bit harder than he liked through the last two left-handers. Let's see what lap time he does. Max Verstappen fastest with a 1:14.8, so we're comfortably in the 1:14s now. What can Lando Norris do? Not quite. 1:14.9. That close between the two of them. What about Piastri? He has been a little bit faster than Norris on a number of occasions. And then, of course, we've got the two Ferraris also. No purples coming up, though. Greens on the screen to us means that it doesn't look as though they're potentially going to be quicker than Max Verstappen. But if you get it all together on the sectors, particularly the last one, it can work. Piastri comes over the line in third. 1:15.1. And that was a very good final sector by him. And now the two Ferraris. Can they beat the time? It's Carlos Sainz looking as though he's just about to come over the line. Carlos, no, not the pace of the McLarens, nor of Verstappen. He's only fourth fastest, and behind it doesn't look like Charles Leclerc's onto a particularly special lap. He goes quicker, he does go third and beats Piastri and Sainz, but it's Verstappen who is on top as ever, but it's only by 0.073 of a second over the winner last time out in Miami, Lando Norris.
And wow, Verstappen absolutely smashed it out of the park in sector 1. Over 0.2 of a second quicker than anybody in that first sector. So he found some pace in the Red Bull somewhere. A driver that was really unhappy with the performance of his car on the soft tyre yesterday. We said never rule them out, and we weren't going to do that. We were just getting excited. However, we still got time left in this session. But yeah, he had a lot of pace over all of the other drivers in that final sector, in that first sector.
Well, brilliant performance by Max Verstappen. Is he going to be beaten or not? Is he going to continue this run of consecutive pole positions and match some records with some other superstar drivers? We shall see. What happens when they come out for the final run. I noticed the Mercedes are actually both out on used soft tyres, so I think it's unlikely we're going to see particularly quick laps from them. We've seen Russell 6th fastest and Hamilton 8th at this point, and Tsunoda has set the 7th fastest time on that first run. Nico Hülkenberg is 9th. Daniel Ricciardo yet to set a lap time, presumably waiting to just come out on a new set of soft tyres and not bothering to do a run on the used tyres. So with just over 6 minutes to go, the track is now going a little quieter as the front runners are coming back into the pits, taking a bit of time. Some of them will have fresh tyres to use, others will not. And right now, Verstappen is in a very, very good position. Carlos Sainz down in 5th position. He'll be a little frustrated at that because actually he's lost 3.5 tenths, a little more, to his own teammate, Charles Leclerc. A lot of Ferrari fans here, though.
I think, looking at it, everyone should have a new set of soft tyres for his final run. Ricciardo didn't go out because he hadn't got the tyres to do that. There wasn't any point in doing that. And anyone else used their used soft. So every one of these 10 drivers should be able to go out there and be able to put together the perfect lap. Now, whether they can or not is another thing, but they should be able to do that.
And the time differences are so tiny, Alice. I mean, 0.073 for Norris. Going through your head, where can I just gain a few hundredths of a second?
Well, that is the thing. There's always a driver, recently anyway, that under the pressure manages to rise to the top, and that is Max Verstappen. Of course, everyone says, well, he has the car underneath him, but he still has to deliver. Sergio Perez has not been able to do that, and he will start the race tomorrow in 11th place, but with 5 minutes exactly left to go on the clock now. Everyone's on the pit wall, eagerly watching, having a look round to seeing what other teams might be doing. It's down to the teams as well to send the driver in the correct space. So not only is the pressure on the driver, but the pressure's also on the teams as well.
I was going to say, this comes a game of where do I want to go out and how do I judge it? They don't know exactly when the other drivers are going to get sent out. They're all behind the garages, so you can never get a sense of when it's going to happen. You just have to go on what you think is best. And I mean, presumably everyone is going to try and be as late as they can, so the conditions on track are as good as they can. But we've already heard Leclerc has to give way to the choice of Carlos Sainz this weekend. So you'd imagine that if Sainz wants to go out later, that's exactly what he'll do.
Okay, well, we're about to get into that final part of qualifying here at Imola. Currently seeing Max Verstappen aiming for pole position. He's fastest from Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc 3rd, Piastri 4th, Carlos Sainz is 5th, George Russell in 6th. Oh, and almost a pass down the pit lane there. George Russell trying to get past the Ferrari. In the end, he's backed off with his teammate Lewis Hamilton following. Max Verstappen is one of the later ones out, in fact. They're heading down the pit lane now. So we're going to get this little queue. They've left themselves a reasonable amount of time. We're not into the final minute, so they don't have to rush round to go to their final lap. But we can see, as you mentioned, Jenny, lots of fresh tyres on these cars, and it could well be down to this final flying lap as to who sets pole position here.
Wind speed has picked up again, though, slightly. Track temperature has also dropped compared to, we're in the 39s now, we were earlier in the 41, 42s, so that will have a small effect on tyre preparation and the performance out there. As you said, Ben, they have got 3 minutes to prepare their tyres, prepare themselves, make sure that they are in the correct mindset heading into this final lap, essentially final flying lap of the session. And we still have quite a queue of cars heading down the pit lane. We've got the 2 McLarens that are stopped in the pit lane, and I'm not sure who's heading that queue, but I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to be stopping or slowing down in the pit lane.
It looked like Max Verstappen was at the top of that queue waiting at the traffic lights, but traffic lights are green at the minute, so that's an interesting one. We have had this, we've seen this quite a lot this season and the end of last season, with drivers holding up the field as they wait for the perfect opportunity to go out. And as you say, it's not really within the rules.
McLarens really are leaving it to the last minute. With 2 minutes, they've got enough time to get over the line before the checkered flag comes out, but they're going to have to go for it. There is going to be an investigation into Carlos Sainz. Maximum delta time perhaps not quite right, so that might come up afterwards, but for the moment we're just focusing on who is setting the pace, and right now it's Max Verstappen, but we've got a final fast run to go. And knowing that 2/3 of the Imola Grand Prix over the years, 30 Grand Prix, 19 of them have been won from the front row. So you really want to be first or second on the grid here to make sure that you've got a chance of taking victory. We're about to find out who's going to be first, second, third, all the way down to 10th place. And Carlos Sainz is onto a flying lap.
He is. I wonder if he's going to get caught up in a little bit of traffic at some point along the lap here. We'll continue to keep an eye on it, but of course those McLarens were leaving it quite late, so he might come across Piastri at some point in the lap, but we'll continue to have a look as he goes through the first part of the chicane, and it's not good, Ben. 0.3 of a second down of Max Verstappen in that first sector alone. The Ferrari is strong in the middle and final sector, but that is a lot of time for Carlos Sainz to try and claw back.
And as you say, in fact, Leclerc, I just noticed he's 0.2 down on that first sector. So whatever the first sector, and you mentioned it before, that Max managed to do on his first really fast lap in this session, fantastic, because nobody is quite matching it. And Sainz, yeah, he's not going any quicker. I wonder if, as you said, the track temperatures is making a difference.
Yeah, the Ferraris, I don't know what's going on. He has just set purple, has Charles Leclerc in the middle sector, but George Russell and Tsunoda have gone faster than the two Ferraris in the first sector. So, yeah, not great, but Max Verstappen, he's now started his push lap and he's gone even faster in the first sector.
Sainz stays in 5th place. It's a slight improvement in time, but it actually hasn't changed his position. Verstappen is flying once again. Leclerc stays in 3rd place. Again, it's a fractional improvement on what he'd done. But I tell you what, Max Verstappen, and we are riding with him right now, he's on a fantastic lap. He's already the top man, and it's not looking as though anyone's going to beat him, even though as we came through the weekend we thought there's a real chance somebody else might take pole. But he is so supreme when it counts, and he's fastest in both the first and middle sectors so far. Lando Norris has not improved even his own middle sector. Piastri, he's done a personal best in the first sector. I don't think, though, anyone's going to challenge this. Where is Verstappen going to take the pole position time to? 1:14.8 goes to 1:14.7. Piastri's just set the fastest middle. Whether that's going to be enough, I don't think Norris is going to be close. He stays second, although it's actually 1:14.8. That was a good lap. Let's just see. Last chance is for the man who's we're just listening into now, Oscar Piastri. Great middle sector. Here comes Oscar Piastri about to cross the line. Verstappen's the man to beat. Oh, he goes second. He goes second. Max Verstappen has taken pole here at Imola. That is his 7th consecutive from the start of the season to match Prost's record from 1993, and his 8th consecutive pole, including the end of last year, matching the all-time record that Ayrton Senna set in 1988 and 1989 to have that many pole positions consecutively. But boy, he had to work hard today because he was under major threat from McLaren, and well done to McLaren. They are on the front row and the second row, and Piastri has out-qualified last race winner Lando Norris.
I have not seen Max Verstappen celebrate a pole like that for a very long time. So I know they were heading into this qualifying session not expecting to be on pole position. Let's hear from him.
And that is a hard-earned pole position this weekend, Max. Enjoy it. Fantastic.
Wow, let's go. Wow, that's definitely a really good position. Wow, what a difficult start. We turned it around. Thank you, everyone. That's fantastic. Really happy.
That is right. They certainly have turned it around, and yeah, they weren't expecting to be on pole position. I mean, Ferrari, I don't know what's gone on there. They were looking so dominant in the first few practice sessions, but well done to Oscar Piastri. He'll be starting alongside, well, potentially, he's under investigation, of course, for impeding a Magnussen, so he might have a penalty
That's a good point.
come his way, but a great result for McLaren. But Max, I mean, that middle sector, let's hear from Oscar.
That is P2, Oscar, P2.
Yeah, cool, well done. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Decent lap, mate, really good.
He's so calm on the radio. He's done a great job, and it's like, yeah, well done, guys. Thanking the crew. Max Verstappen, as you said, sounded really excited. I think he put his absolute maximum into that one, and it worked perfectly to take pole, but it was not as easy as some of the poles have been this year, but well done to him. He's done it again. His teammate didn't even make the top 10. He has snatched pole by that tiny margin for his 39th ever, and matching records from those great drivers. And it feels odd in a way to mention Senna's record record being matched, because this was the track that Senna died 30 years ago, and yet he has done it and matched those 8 consecutive poles in a career that over a couple of seasons, but it is remarkable, and in a way I suppose it makes sense to do it here at Imola.
It does, and you know, as much as we all can sit here and go, you know, Max Verstappen, he's on pole again, but that is a really impressive lap. I mean, he's so dominant in that first sector, and they clearly haven't had the car in the window, and that's what really puts Max Verstappen up there with the greats, is that he's pulled that lap time out of the bag. As you said, Ben, his teammate's down in 11th place with a disastrous Q2. But Max, he's risen to the top. It may be what a performance of a car is not feeling great. Max has still managed to pull it out the bag.
Yeah, all good stuff, and we are going to be on for an interesting grid. We don't know yet exactly what will happen in terms of any penalties, etc. But let's go and join Davide Valsetti, who is going to be talking to the drivers who have taken the top 3 places.
Max Verstappen on pole position, incredible performance. Tell me please how you could pull off a performance like this. The atmosphere was amazing, but everyone was pushing for the Ferrari driver. But you, with a difficult Friday, you could pull off an unbelievable lap. Talk us through your lap, please.
Yeah, really difficult weekend so far, even this morning. So I'm incredibly happy to be on pole here. I didn't expect that, but we made some final changes before qualifying. They seemed to make it feel a bit better. I could push a bit harder. And this track is unbelievable. And in qualifying lap, you know, to be on the limit here, close to the gravel. I touched the gravel in the last corner. Yeah, I'm still pumping. You know, the adrenaline is very, very high.
And do you know that you are writing the history? Because with 8 consecutive pole positions, you are equal to a legend of our sport, Ayrton Senna. How does it feel? Because this is history for motorsport.
Yeah, it's of course a great start to the year, but also very special. You know, it's 30 years since he passed away at this track. So of course very pleased, you know, to get pole here, and in a way it's a nice memory to him. You know, he was an incredible Formula 1 driver, especially in qualifying laps as well. So yeah, great day for me, great day for the team. So I'm very, very happy.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
At the second position, great performance from Oscar Piastri. Oscar, how was your quali? Because it seems that in Q2 you were struggling a bit, and then you became a bit more performant in the first try in Q3, and then in the last try you were up there. You are going to start in first row. How was your lap?
Yeah, pretty good. A little bit of a scruffy last corner, but I think around here it's so difficult to do a perfect lap. So no, really happy. I've been really comfortable with the car from the moment we put it on track yesterday, and so close to pole, but very happy. It's been a little while since I've been back up here, so no, very happy with how this weekend's going so far.
And seems that your McLaren is so improved. Tomorrow, do you think that you can fight for something more?
I think yes. I think normally in the past we say no, but yeah, I think with our recent performances we've learned to say yes. So we'll see what we can do. I think, you know, we've definitely been on the pace all weekend. You know, you can never count out Max and Red Bull, of course, like we've just seen. But I don't know, I think the confidence is high. Of course, it's not the easiest track to overtake on, but yeah, I think the confidence is high that we can do something good.
Congratulations for your performance.
Thank you.
Lando Norris, well done, mate. You just a fresh winner in Formula 1. Great qualified today. All the grandstand and the tifosi, they were cheering a bit for you because you are so great charter in Formula 1. How was your lap? How was your quali?
Thanks. Yeah, great. I mean, P3 is not a bad job at all, and yeah, within a 10th, both of us for P1. So. Tiny margins, but I think for us as a team, we've had a very good day, a very good weekend so far. Oscar's done a great job, and so did Max. So exciting. We're close, and I can't wait for tomorrow.
Looking for the podium, or looking for something else now that you can get used?
Yes, we still need to get used to it, but we're getting closer. To be ahead of Ferrari is also a nice result for us, but. It's going to be close. It's going to be a good race tomorrow. Hopefully it's an exciting one to watch. Also an exciting one inside the car. But Tough, especially when the lap times are so tight. A lot of it is down to turn 1, lap 1, the strategy, the pit stops. So it's going to be a tough race.
Well done. It was great to watch.
Grazie.
So that is your top 3 for qualifying. You heard it all. Max Verstappen ahead of Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Can we get excited for tomorrow then, please?
Oh yes, we can still get excited because, I mean, the times were so close. The start will be crucial, getting off the line, and pole position, of course, for Max Verstappen, but the McLaren alongside, who knows who's going to get the best start off the line. And the fact that the 2 McLarens, hopefully, we don't know yet. Piastri we're wondering if he may get a penalty for holding up Magnussen earlier in qualifying, but we'll find out. But in theory, if both McLarens are there, maybe they can help each other.
Yeah, both McLarens, then it's both Ferraris, which is kind of a surprise. George Russell ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton once again. He starts P6. Yuki Tsunoda, what a great weekend so far. This is a real chance for the RB team. They've got Daniel Ricciardo starting in 9th as well, Alice, and they will try and take this and run with it, won't they?
Yeah, they will. They'll have some competition charging from behind. You're going to expect Perez, who's going to be trying to make his way through in the Red Bull, who's currently lining up in 11th place on the grid. But huge positivity for Tsunoda and Ricciardo and the RB team to put them where they are. Russell, of course, he'll be pleased. Lewis Hamilton, I was watching him, actually, he was walking back to the FIA weighbridge, helmet on, visor down, and constantly shaking his head, so clearly not happy with his Mercedes.
Oh, is that what we can read into that? I wasn't quite sure. No, it was very clear body language, wasn't it? Perez starting P11, that's not a great day for him, bearing in mind what we've just seen Max Verstappen being able to do. And Fernando Alonso, it all really went wrong in the earlier practice session today when he crashed that car, and maybe both of them actually suffering from that earlier crashes in P3, do you think?
It's possible because, you never quite know if the car's going to be exactly the same or as it was after it has been repaired. The damage on Perez's car wasn't quite so much, but that lap just didn't come together for him, and so he, as you say, has ended up down in 11th place. And Fernando Alonso, he's going to be starting all the way down in 19th place. I mean, that on a track like this where overtaking is not easy, that's going to be a hard, tough afternoon for Fernando.
Absolutely. Well, you can read more about this on the BBC Sport website. Andrew Benson is, as we speak, typing furiously to bring you the latest, so do that. We are also going to do a podcast, so you can download that from BBC Sounds or wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure you join us tomorrow from 2 o'clock on BBC Radio 5 Live. We will have all the coverage from the Emilia Romagna GP from Imola. It will hopefully be as good a race as we would like it to be. I think that's all I can say, but come back and join us then. This has been an IMD radio production for BBC Radio 5 Live.